Dallas Cowboys would like to get a deal done with Micah Parsons, but a deal at this time doesn't seem close. We saw last year Dallas doesn't move quick on these particular deals. CD Lamb went into the summer. Dak Prescott lasted until the first day of the regular season, but clearly they'd like to get a deal done with Micah Parsons, but that deal does not appear to be close at this time. In the interim, they're more focused on Osa Odighizuwa, their defensive lineman, who could wind up getting the franchise tag by this time tomorrow. The deadline is 4 o'clock Eastern on Tuesday for players to be tagged. We've already seen Kansas City guard Trey Smith be tagged, Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins be tagged, and Osa Odighizuwa would be another player that we're watching by Tuesday's 4 p.m. Eastern deadline for a potential franchise tag.
To say the Cowboys move slowly in negotiations, that was an understatement there, Shefty. And they did struggle last season, ranking in the bottom 5 in points allowed, total QBR, and yards allowed per game. They were the top 5 in all those categories in 2023. But, of course, one area where Dallas defense looked really good, getting to the quarterback. They had the 3rd most sacks in the NFL last season. That, of course, is thanks in large part to the aforementioned Micah Parsons. He had 12 sacks. Obviously, Mina, signing him long-term should be a top priority here. How does a big contract for him, in your estimation, affect the rest of their offseason?
I don't know what's so hard about this. You take the top edge contract, I believe it's Nick Bosa, and then you add some money. Boom, done. I did it, Dallas. It's like not that hard. So the Cowboys right now have no money, right? But there are a lot of moves that they make, a few moves rather, to alleviate that situation pretty quickly. Right now, Dak Prescott has a $90 million cap hit because he's got a ton of salary in the future. You can convert that into a bonus, bring it down to just over 50. Same thing with, well, not the same thing, but with CD Lamb, again, you can convert a lot of his bonus to contract, bring that down. And then if you do deal with Micah Parsons, that's similar to what I just said, which is basically the Nick Bosa deal. Plus, you actually can bring his cap hit down a decent amount too, because right now it's got him on the tag. You do those 3 moves and suddenly you're at over $60 million in cap space. Now, it would mean you are tying your fate to these 3 players and that you want them to be the future of the franchise, not just in the next couple of years, but even beyond that. But if I'm Dallas, I feel good about that. I think they're 3 really good football players. And then you do that, you have a little bit of flexibility to move around and address some of the other positions on the roster.
Yeah, that's fascinating, MK, because if you look at their roster and their free agents, they're not in a good place. I mean, they got to try to re-sign DeMarcus Lawrence. Brandon Cooks is a free agent, so they're going to need somebody else opposite and or outside of CeeDee Lamb. Rico Dowdle, who actually thought did a nice job last year and would be my starting back if I were them, is a free agent. Chauncey Golston. So, like, there's a lot of question marks of important players that they have to try to re-sign. And unless they do some of those cap moves that you're talking about, this is a football team that's going to be even more so devoid of talent. Obviously, the interior of their defensive line has got to be a focal point. But I feel like 2 years ago, MK, it was fix the interior of the defensive line, you'll be fine. I think there's a lot more holes to this roster than we thought 2 years ago.
I think something that's going to be really key to whether or not they're in good shape going forward is internal development on the offensive line. Because looking at the roster, I see a lot of the needs that you talked about, and I think they can address some of those in the draft, particularly like wide receiver, maybe find a defensive tackle. But the offensive line is where they've already invested a fair amount of draft capital, and if a player like Tyler Guyton can take a step forward, he got to play a lot last year at left tackle. If you feel good about Brock Hoffman and Cooper Beebe, on the interior, then suddenly you have what very few teams in football have, which is a cheap, good offensive line. So to me, when I think about this roster and I think about what shape they're in, and I think about making all these moves, so much depends on the development of that offensive line, because that's what's going to give them flexibility to do other things.
Yeah, they do have the 12th overall pick in the draft, but this is just the 7th time since 2000 that they've even picked in the top 15. It'll be very interesting to see what they prioritize there.
How's it going, everybody? Villa Sports Network here. Just want to thank you guys for your support on the channel. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Also want to kind of remind you to don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on the video if you like as well. But regardless of the fact, thank you again for your support, and hope to see you on the next video.